This is Straight Talk with Atlanta native Greg Fann, the Preacher Man, and his sidekick Shannon Jones. Frank discussions of issues affecting the ATL, Fulton County, the state of Georgia, the nation, and around the world. And now, here they are, live and in living color, the team of Jones and Fann, the Preacher Man.
Well, welcome to another edition of Straight Talk with yours truly, Greg Fann, the Preacher Man, and my sidekick, Shannon E. Jones. Reverend Cheney just, yeah, you're a sidekick. Shannon, I'm glad you're on time today. Well, I'm glad you're on time today. I know that. I'm glad you got gas too, right?
First of all, I'll be out doing the weather report, okay, and the traffic report.
Well, since you give me the traffic, what's going on with traffic and gas?
Today, the traffic is at the gas station. You want to stay away from there because ain't no gas and it's a lot of traffic.
A lot of traffic and no gas.
We got a lot of serious business.
Yes, so we do. And listen, today we're going to have with us interviews from Liz Cheney, Congresswoman Liz Cheney, and her speech that she gave to the Congress in reference to what was going on as before they removed her. Then we'll have her after removal and what she said about that, and we'll have Congressman Alan Kinzinger, who will talk about his support of her and her position. So we're going to get ready to get started with the interviews, and Shannon, let it roll. Here she is.
Tonight, I rise to discuss freedom and our constitutional duty to protect it. Mr. Speaker, I have been privileged to see firsthand how powerful and how fragile freedom is. 28 years ago, I stood outside a polling place, a schoolhouse in Western Kenya. Soldiers had chased away people who were lined up to vote. A few hours later, they came streaming back in, risking further attack, undaunted in their determination to exercise their right to vote. In 1992, I sat across a table from a young mayor in Nizhny Novgorod, Russia, and I listened to him talk of his dream of liberating his nation from communism. Years later, for his dedication to the cause of freedom, Boris Nemtsov was assassinated by Vladimir Putin's thugs. In Warsaw in 1990, I listened to a young Polish woman tell me that her greatest fear was that people would forget. They would forget what it was like to live under Soviet domination, that they would forget the price of freedom. 3 men, an immigrant who escaped Castro's totalitarian regime, a young man who grew up behind the Iron Curtain and became his country's Minister of Defense, and a dissident who spent years in the Soviet Gulag, have all told me it was the miracle of America, captured in the words of President Ronald Reagan, that inspired them. And I have seen the power of faith and freedom. I listened to Pope John Paul II speak to thousands in Nairobi in 1985, and 19 years later, I watched that same Pope take my father's hands, look in his eyes, and say, "God bless America." God has blessed America, Mr. Speaker, but our freedom only survives if we protect it, if we honor our oath taken before God in this chamber to support and defend the Constitution, if we recognize threats to freedom when they arise. Today, we face a threat America has never seen before. A former president who provoked a violent attack on this Capitol in an effort to steal the election has resumed his aggressive effort to convince Americans that the election was stolen from him. He risks inciting further violence. Millions of Americans have been misled by the former president. They have heard only his words, but not the truth, as he continues to undermine our democratic process, sowing seeds of doubt about whether democracy really works at all. I am a conservative Republican, and the most conservative of conservative principles is reverence for the rule of law. The Electoral College has voted. More than 60 state and federal courts, including multiple judges the former president appointed, have rejected his claims. The Trump Department of Justice investigated the former president's claims of widespread fraud and found no evidence to support them. The election is over. That is the rule of law. That is our constitutional process. Those who refuse to accept the rulings of our courts are at war with the Constitution. Our duty is clear. Every one of us who has sworn the oath must act to prevent the unraveling of our democracy. This is not about policy. This is not about partisanship. This is about our duty as Americans. Remaining silent and ignoring the lie emboldens the liar. I will not participate in that. I will not sit back and watch in silence while others lead our party down a path that abandons the rule of law and joins the former president's crusade to undermine our democracy. As the party of Reagan, Republicans have championed democracy, won the Cold War, and defeated the Soviet communists. Today, America is on the cusp of another Cold War, this time with communist China. Attacks against our democratic process and the rule of law empower our adversaries and feed communist propaganda that American democracy is a failure. We must speak the truth. Our election was not stolen, and America has not failed. I received a message last week from a Gold Star father who said, "Standing up for the truth honors all who gave all." We must all strive to be worthy of the sacrifice of those who have died for our freedom. They are the patriots Catherine Lee Bates described in the words of America the Beautiful when she wrote, "O beautiful for heroes proved in liberating strife, who more than self their country loved, and mercy more than life." Ultimately, Mr. Speaker, this is at the heart of what our oath requires, that we love our country more, that we love her so much that we will stand above politics to defend her, that we will do everything in our power to protect our Constitution and our freedom that has been paid for by the blood of so many. We must love America so much that we will never yield in her defense. That is our duty. Thank you.
Well, Shannon, she gives a great speech to Congress prior to her removal from her position as the House Republican Conference leader, chair of that committee. And so, Shannon, just your opinion or your point of view in terms of the speech that she gave then, prior to.
I think it was a very rational. I think it was steeped in the conservative principles of the Republican Party that many of my conservative friends, black and white, espouse. And I think that it heightens the reality that there are two factions in the Republican Party. One says the sky is red, the other says the sky is blue. This is not a 50-50 view. One sees the sky as blue, and the other is just absolutely out of their mind. And so the fraction in the Republican Party right now is the sane versus the insane. And I think you just saw a very sane representation of a Republican view or a conservative view, party and country.
Well, I will tend to agree with you. I don't agree with you much, but I agree with you on that. It should be good. Well, it is what it is. We all are God's people, and it's the love of country that we should be more focused on than, and as opposed to supporting a lie that everyone knows that's a lie. And I want to applaud Ms. Cheney for her stance and her position. I'm neither Republican or Democrat. I'm for what is right as it relates to the least, the less, the lost, and the left out. And no one agrees on everything. Even I don't agree on everything. That's just not the way life is. But the reality of it is, I have to agree with her and her stance on love of the country, of this country, and looking at other nations and how other nations are looking at us, and how we are supposed to be setting an example for other nations in terms of how to have a free election and a democracy versus communism. What we're moving toward is more to communism, as she stated in her speech, and that is true, because if we're going to live, and you know I've been saying this all along, do we want to be a democracy or do we want a dictator?
Well, you know what, let me just say this. I don't even think it'd be communism. I think that you would have a ruling class of people, and they would put everybody else in the poorhouse. It wouldn't be equally shared.
Well, that's already that now. We already that now. We're already that point that you can say it.
Personified.
Right. Okay.
You're moving that way, but you're not legally that way.
Right. Right.
The Supreme Court says that's the way it is.
Right.
And we're moving in a
Well, they agree with the Supreme Court because these same people did not agree with judges who said that there was no stealing of an election, no fraud in elections.
Right.
Well, they didn't agree with the Supreme Court, where they stripped the Supreme Court of its authority to the Supreme Court.
They were trying to move the Supreme Court in a way that the Supreme Court could rubber stamp whatever it was that they wanted to do. And now the concern is that, okay, in order to balance out the court, would this president now put more justices on the court to balance out the agenda that they tried to put? Man, they tried to slip us a real Mickey.
But let's just be realistic here, though. They did. However, let's look at the judges who were appointed by him who agreed that there was no fraud.
Right.
Okay, so there are some people who still love America, and they're not bought into the big lie and bought into the idea of democracy. I mean, dictatorship over democracy or ruling class.
We need to hear their voices.
We need to hear that more of their voices, like we're hearing the voices of Mrs. Cheney. And we want to thank her again for it. Now let's listen to her speech after they fired her. Okay.
Tend to be the leader, one of the leaders in a fight to help to restore our party, in a fight to bring our party back to substance and principles, and in a fight to make clear that we won't participate in a really dangerous effort that's underway. This is I think, opening salvo in that battle. And it's a battle we have to win, because it's not just about the Republican Party. It's about the country.
Well, welcome to another edition of Straight Talk with yours truly, Greg Fann, the preacher man, and my sidekick, Shannon E. Jones. Reverend Shannon Jones. Yeah, you're a sidekick. Shannon, I'm glad you're on time today. Well, I'm glad you're on time today. I know that. I'm glad you got gas too, right?
First of all, I'll be out doing the weather report, okay, and the traffic report.
Well, since you give me the traffic, what's going on with traffic and gas?
Warsaw in
of being consistent and telling the truth.
Big lie, and bought into the idea of democracy. I mean, dictatorship over democracy or ruling class.
We need to hear their voices.
We need to hear that more of their voices, like we're hearing the voices of Mrs. Cheney. And we want to thank her again for it. Now let's listen to her speech after Congresswoman Cheney in her position. And they're showing that they're true Americans. You know, that's what I see from them. They really truly love this country and not caught up on the party, but caught up on what's right.
Yeah, absolutely. There are ways to win an election, but you should not be doing anything as a United States representative, United States senator, or a citizen that's against the Constitution of the United States of America. And when you begin to thumb your nose at the Constitution of the United States of America, then you're showing yourself to be un-American. And so Kinzinger just said, look, we lost this election. There was nothing that was wrong. We lost the election. But unfortunately, you've got a failed president who was a failed businessman who is morally a failure and who is willing to destroy this party and would destroy the nation with his antics. And someone needs to stand up against him. I think that both of them, in years to come, they will prove to be right, although I think that there might be a third party emerging from this Republican Party.
Well, the Tea Party came out before, in terms of the Republican Party, because there were a lot of people upset about the Republican Party and their stance and position. They created the Tea Party. So it's yet to be seen what's going to happen. Right, they were.
I'm thinking that this thing is getting ready to fracture in a way where you're going to see folks leave the Republican Party and become another
whole nother party. Well, there's been much talk about a third party, a real strong third party. We come up with the Green Party, the Independent Party, the Tea Party, but we'll see. Time will tell. But that party is around still today. But the issue is right today is that history will long tell who came out on the right side of this debate. That people continue to deal with the big lie, or will people try to save this country that we all should love and care about? God bless America, land that we love. And thank them both for their stand and position. And we need others to come out and speak out loud about the big lie. The big lie, because there's a lot of big lies going on, Shannon. We're going to be talking about a big lie going on here in Georgia. We'll be back with the big lie that's going on in Georgia with this unemployment, with the lying governor and the do-nothing labor commissioner. And we'll be right back after this Black History Fact and with our Solicitor General and others who are doing a restorative justice program on June the 10th. Don't you go nowhere. Share it with your Facebook family and friends and YouTube family. We'll be right back. Greg Fann, the preacher man, with Brother James Groom and Black History Facts right here on Straight Talk.
This is Georgia's own Alice Marie Coachman. Alice Coachman, born November 9th, 1923 in Albany, Georgia, was the fifth of 10 children born to Fred and Evelyn Coachman. Being an athletic child in the Jim Crow South, Alice was, of course, denied access to any sort of athletic or training facility, which resulted in Alice running on dirt roads and using sawhorses, creating her own hurdles to practice jumping. Encouraged by an aunt and her fifth grade teacher, Alice Coachman began developing her talents and skills on the track while attending James Madison High School. At 16 years old, Alice Marie Coachman was offered a scholarship by the Tuskegee Institute to transfer and attend its high school program, where she competed on and against all Black athletic programs and teams throughout the segregated South. After entering Tuskegee Institute's college division in 1943, Alice Coachman played on Tuskegee's basketball team as well as participating in their track and field events, where she won 4 national championships in sprinting and high jumping. In 1947, Alice Coachman entered Albany State University and by 1949 was their track and field instructor. But it was in 1948 that Alice Coachman tried out for and qualified to become a member of the United States Olympic team, and it was in August of 1948 that Alice Marie Coachman from Albany, Georgia, became the first African-American woman to win an Olympic gold medal when she leapt 5 feet 6 1/8 inches, setting a new Olympic record for the high jump. Throughout her athletic career, Alice Marie Coachman won 34 national titles, was inducted into 9 Halls of Fame, including the National Track and Field Hall of Fame in 1975 and the United States Olympic Hall of Fame in 2004. Alice Coachman also became the first African-American woman to endorse an international commercial product when Coca-Cola signed her on as their spokesperson. Alice Marie Coachman went on to marry Frank A. Davis, and in 1994 established a track and field foundation in her own name to provide motivation and assistance to young athletes and former Olympic competitors. Alice Marie Coachman Davis died July 14th, 2014. She was 90 years old. That's Alice Marie Coachman. They forget all about her, but we won't.
It's been Black History Facts with Brother James Groom right here on Straight Talk. Join us each and every Friday at 7 p.m. right here on YouTube and Facebook.
If you're a resident of Fulton County, this Juneteenth could mean a different kind of second chance for you or your family. Register now through April 30th so that your records can be restricted so you can be a part of the Juneteenth expungement celebration happening June 17th and June 18th. Why you care?
I think the role of a prosecutor should be to look back to try and remedy past wrongs that have occurred in our unfair criminal justice system.
In Georgia, 10 million people, 4.3 million, 40% of the population have a criminal record. 40%.
In Georgia?
4-0.
Is that the biggest? What is that?
That's one of the biggest in the country. Nationally, it's about 25%.
I also want to clear up this notion that there's this big gap between the Jewish community and the Black community, because there are lots of African American Jews. So we're not just doing this out of a sense of charity. This is because it is the righteous thing to do. It is the right thing to do, and also because people in our community are folks who might get caught up in just because of the color of their skin.
And I saw so many people and have seen so many people who were much more talented, but for whatever reason they made missteps. And I got to see so many people who were good people ensnared in the criminal justice system. When I went to college, some of them went to jail. Wow, they were better athletes than me. They were better students than me. But for whatever reason, God had his hands on me. Wow. And so I'm looking back at those people now, and I have this great God-given opportunity to try and help.
So we serve a God of redemption, and we often have people who are falling, right, because of systems that man has built. And God has already given them their second, third, and fourth chance, but there are laws in place that say you can't get food stamps if you have this type of conviction. You can't live at this place if you have this on your record. And so what we're doing with this event is removing that barrier, right, for people to actually experience what God has already given them.
Register now at FultonRestorativeJustice.org. That's FultonRestorativeJustice.org. Or call the restriction hotline if you have any questions, 404-612-4820.
Well, Shannon, I tell you, man, again, the June 10th with Keith Gamage. Keith is doing, we're just proud of our Solicitor General, great man, and trying to help people along with the Jewish community, and he really is. And true to what he said, when he said he was going to work on a restorative justice program to give people a second chance and not try to lock up everybody, because people do make mistakes. And I want to thank him for being true to who he is. And of course, the young lady, who was a great athlete, who did end up being recognized later on in life for her great accomplishments and the things she do. Black History Fact. Hey, if you have a Black History Fact you want to give us, hey, all you got to do is email us, fan922@comcast.net, or call me at 404-308-0795, and we'll get you on the program. Shannon, let's talk about this.
It's a real Black History Fact. Don't just call it. Back in my history.
I know. Well, again, what we're going to do is we're going to screen it to make sure it's true. It's a real, true Black History Fact.
That's not true Black history. Real
Black history.
Touched Black America, Black life.
All right, thank you so very much. But right now, I want to talk about something that's pressing here in Georgia. As we talked about Congresswoman Cheney and the Congressman Adam Kingsler. We talked about them and their stance. You know, this lying governor that we have, he's a liar too. I always talk about how he stole the election himself. when he was Secretary of State and would not recuse himself and purge the role, and then turn around and sign a law to take the authority of positions that he once had from the President, Secretary of State. And now he's supporting a labor commissioner to now take benefits away from people who are unemployed, which he's not been giving money out anyway in the first place. Thousands of people who are crying because they haven't got their first check.
Every 5 persons in the state of Georgia.
Haven't gotten their check. So
received one payment.
One payment. So
over a year.
And over a year.
Some of them over a year.
And I want to just say, because the point that I want to make here is I want people to know that's viewing this program and pass the word on, is that this labor commissioner and this governor who stripped his predecessor of powers he once had when the House and Senate voted to censor or do something to the labor commissioner and pass it as a law, doing similar things to the labor commissioner that they did to the Secretary of State, to the labor commissioner. He signs and says he vetoed that law because he said that he doesn't have the right, they should have the right to oversee constitutional officers. Well, last time I read, the Secretary of State was a constitutional officer elected by the people. So he said they shouldn't have the authority. They don't have the authority to do it. Well, why can you do it for one and can't do it for other? This is what I learned. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. All right. So now he's talking about taking monies away from people, not taking federal monies again. Shannon, this is just crazy, man. People need it. You wouldn't raise the unemployment in the state. I mean, not raise the unemployment, but you wouldn't raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour.
It's now $7.25, and it's been the last time it was raised was 2009.
Right.
$7.25, and a livable wage in the state of Georgia is $28 an hour.
Well, I think Representative McClain said it best when we talk about federal minimum wage in Georgia. Each state set its own minimum wage, and Georgia pays people in the hotel industry and people who are restaurant workers $5 and some an hour. That's their minimum wage. And these are the jobs that they're talking about they want to bring people back to, that they can't fill these jobs. So we're going to stop giving unemployment check to people so they can go out and take these $5 and some cent an hour job. Yeah. I mean, when someone, and I just want to share this, let me share this now, let you speak, is that many of these employers who are in these restaurants who have gotten that money, right, they the people who are hostess, and I've heard this from people who are waitresses and worked in restaurants, that they have to split their tip with fellow workers, and then many of them are taking half of the tip, and they got to get half of the tip to the owners of the restaurant. Man, this is ludicrous. It's just ludicrous. It's like gouging, like price gouging on this gas. It's ludicrous, man, what they're doing to people, and they call themselves Christians. Christian. You ain't no Christian, you's a liar. And all liars gonna burn in the lake of fire. Shannon, I'm gonna let you have it now. You got it.
Everybody saying, Lord, ain't going there.
All right.
But just the reality of this is that this is a national campaign. This is not just here in the state of Georgia, it's national. And so you got these governors like this governor, pilot here in Georgia, that's saying, you know, if we cut off the unemployment, it'll force people to work. But people who have gone to college, gone to trade school, paid a lot of money to go to school, got loans and whatnot, and they had good paying jobs, and they contributed tax-wise to the state and paid into unemployment. They lost their job during COVID, lost contracts for whatever reason. And now you're trying to take people that were making a very decent wage and saying, well, you know, you can't get hired at the industry that you were in right now. Go on over to the Waffle House. There's a job over there. Why don't you I understand that you were a chiropractor or that you were a professional in some area, or you were a marketing director at this corporation, and you made $90,000 or $100,000 a year. But now you need to go over and get a job at the pet store. There's a job there. Don't tell me there's not a job there. And then they say, well, you got all these low-wage workers who have children who are going to be out of school. Some children who are out of school now due to COVID. Then you're getting ready to go into the summer. Newsflash, no school in the summer. So then they're trying to take care of these children. The moratorium is lifting, all right? And they got federal money coming in that is slightly higher than the money they would have made. And so they're saying, well, see, these low-wage workers are taking advantage of, man, these people are struggling. And if you think that the federal assistance money, think about this now, hear me, Straight Talk audience. The federal assistance money is higher than the money they would make working 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day. It tells you that their wage is too low. So the argument would be to raise the minimum wage. This is evil that we're dealing with. This is not
pure evil. Pure evil.
This is evil. And if these legislators are not doing the work of Satan, they will fill his shoes until Satan gets here. Okay? But Satan wouldn't do no worse, couldn't do any worse than what you're seeing systematically happening to people in states throughout this country. And it is absolutely terrible. And freedom-loving people, Christ-centered people, faith-filled people, people of faith and conscience and morals have to stand up. And we've got to go to the mat on this one.
And of course, we are coming together along with a coalition of ministers, community leaders, labor leaders, coming together. We're going to address this issue because, and business leaders, we're going to address this issue because this is just not right. It's not right. I got a call the other day, Shannon. You know, people going to be evicted. They're going to lose their home. People are they're going to lose what they have invested in it for years not because of no fault of their own, but because of the pandemic. And this is America. We're supposed to take care of our people, but we're taking care of the few, but not the many. Okay, so and Mark Butler's office has been closed down during the whole time of the pandemic. People haven't gotten monies who would do monies during the whole pandemic, and now you want to cut off everybody and say nothing. And people are going to lose their apartments, they're going to lose their houses, they're going to lose their cars. And you're talking about crime increasing, you're talking about reducing crime. As the governor, on one hand, you're saying you want to help reduce crime in Atlanta. You're going to help increase crime, period, by not giving people what they need. Because people are going to take care of their families. You know, as pastors, and you know this because we've experienced this, and I've been pastoring for over 40-some years and been a minister for over 50 years. And I've heard this story not one time, not two times, I don't know how many times, where people have gotten arrested and have talked to me and why did you good people? Why? Because I had to feed my family. I had to do what I needed to do for my family because I lost my job. And
they say, I know it wasn't right.
I know it wasn't right, but I had to do what I needed to do to feed my family. Yes, I got in the drug game because I needed to be able to bring money in for my family. I didn't want to lose my wife. I didn't want to lose my children. I didn't want my family displaced, but that's what's going to happen now. You know, displacement of families. And it's going to be hurtful. And I just want to say to bright people that think that of conscience that know what's right is we collectively got to stand up. You can't sit at home and be silent on this because it would be you if it was not for the grace of God. It would be you. There go I if it was not for the grace of God.
Which means it is you, because if it's affecting your neighbor, then you should care enough about your neighbor and do that. If I put you in the Serengeti, in the middle of a safari, and a lion had eaten, you could stand there in front of that lion would walk right past you. Wouldn't be threatened by you, wouldn't try to attack you, because that lion had already eaten. But if I put you in the Serengeti, and you took off or killed off all of the food that lion could hunt in its day-to-day job of hunting and working and trying to feed the lion and the lion that's in the family, and I put you in the Serengeti and you standing in front of him, that lion is going to attack you. It's going to eat you because that lion is hungry. And so when you suppress the food source, when you suppress the economic, when you suppress the vote pretty soon you're going to start to see these kinds of inflections, these kinds of bumps in higher crime and higher this. And I would have to think that the governor would know that. I just don't think he cares.
He doesn't care. He doesn't care. He doesn't care, and it's apparent that he doesn't care. And he keeps doing these little things about putting blacks on this stone mountain committee, signing a bill, no more citizens arrest, and having blacks stand up there with him. But the reality of it is these are just picture opportunity. These are feel good kind of thing. But what feels good for me to be able to feed my family, for me to be able to have a place for me and my family to stay, that's what feels good, because then I'm taking care of what I need to be taken care of. I'm being responsible. Don't put people in a position, it's not just black folks, it's the least, the less, the lost, and the left out. It ain't just a black issue, it's a human right issue, and we have to stand up. And you know what, for those who say your vote don't matter, listen, this is a direct result of your vote mattering, because when you voted and you made sure that Trump was out, this is what we're getting, the backlash of Mr. Trump being out. Because they're trying to squeeze us and squeeze us and squeeze us and make us turn against each other and fight each other. But we're not going to do it. We're going to fight them. We're going to fight the oppressor. We're going to fight those that are oppressing us, and know that we have a God. If he delivered the children of Israel out of Egypt, he's that same God today as he was on yesterday. And we need for you to join in. Put it out on your social media. Come join us in all that we do. Speak about it in your churches. Pastors, tell your members, because guess what? If they ain't got no money, some of us have done pretty good during this pandemic. We've been able to do some things that our church wasn't able to do before the pandemic. But listen, people lose their job, people lose money, resources. Those church doors are going to close up. Did you know Wheat Street Tower, which was a place for senior citizens that the late Reverend William Holmes Borders and those in his congregation established to help people in the community, right? Seniors. It is now that same place. I got a call from James Davenport. That same place that they built today is telling senior citizens who have lived there, who have paid their rent, that they got to move, because it's been sold to a consortium that's saying that you got to move out of this building.
Because Reverend Borders' grandson is a maniacal young man that I dealt with when I was at Ebenezer Baptist Church. He's absolutely money hungry, and he's absolutely crazy. He's atypical, totally against everything that his father ever stood for, totally against anything that his sister Lisa Borders stands for. And his father, Dr. William Borders, a medical doctor here, would be very ashamed of him. His aunt has to stay in prayer for him, but he must have a love-hatred for his grandfather and for the compassion that man had for community, because this brother is evil. I'm not going to call his name, but he's an evil young man, and that is absolutely terrible, what he is forcing on Wheat Street Church, and ran a pastor recently.
Well, I would say this to you guys. Let's stay together. Let's get into this. You'll hear more about what the actions is going to be taken. We got to do something. We got to do something. Call the U.S. Senator. Call Reverend Warner. Call Mr. Ossoff. We voted for them. Call them. Tell them we're not having. We need them to get into this and do something to help us in this fight, because we need our leaders, those that we have elected, to speak up and be a voice for us, and we need you to be a voice. A closed mouth will never be fed. It will be you next. If they do it to them, guess what? You next. First they came from them, then they came and got them, then they came and got them, then they came, got them. There was no one left, and then they came and got me. Remember. So I want you to know, brothers and sisters, we're in this. It's a fight everywhere we go. We see it going on. These are the end times. These are the times that try men's soul, cause people don't care. They are careless and cold. Join us again next week right here on Straight Talk with yours truly, Greg Fann, the Preacher Man, and my sidekick. You ain't got to worry about that, brother. I don't care. I don't care.
Put out my theory.
Okay, but I don't care if he. I don't care if he is.
Dessert.
I don't care if he hit or not. They ain't gonna be there. You ain't got to worry about me. If I see a lion, tiger, and bear, oh my, I'm gone.
This is
Straight Talk.
Want to be a guest on Straight Talk? Email Greg Fann at FANN922 at Comcast.net or call 404-308-0795. Join us again for another episode of Straight Talk with Shannon Jones and Greg Fann, the Preacher Man.